Yes, I can help with Joshua Selman's sermons. Apostle Joshua Selman is a Nigerian Christian minister, teacher, and founder of Koinonia, a Eternity Network International. His sermons are widely known for their depth, strong scriptural foundations, and emphasis on spiritual growth, intimacy with God, destiny, leadership, and the ministry of the Holy Spirit. When a new week begins, it is important to understand that you are not merely turning a page on a calendar. You are stepping into a spiritual territory that already has activity, expectations, and invisible negotiations taking place. Every week carries a mandate, and whether that mandate favors you or frustrates you depends largely on how intentionally you engage it. A week is first spiritual before it becomes physical. And those who ignore this reality often find themselves reacting to events instead of ruling over them. Spiritual territories are not taken by wishful thinking or emotional excitement. They are taken by authority, and authority is exercised through intentional spiritual engagement. When you wake up on the first day of a new week without prayer, you are not neutral. You have unconsciously handed over influence to unseen forces that are eager to shape outcomes in their own way. Nothing in the spirit realm is idle. If you do not define the week will define you. Many people wonder why the same patterns repeat themselves week after week. Unexplained fatigue, avoidable conflicts, missed opportunities, and strange delays. Often, it is not because of a lack of ability or effort, but because the spiritual environment of the week was never addressed. Just as land must be claimed before it can be cultivated, time must be taken spiritually before it can yield fruit physically. Intention is what separates those who dominate time from those who are dominated by it. To take a week intentionally means you approach it with consciousness and responsibility. You acknowledge that the days ahead are not empty vessels, but containers waiting to be filled, either by divine purpose or by random circumstances. Through prayer, you mark the week as belonging to God's agenda. You declare that the events, meetings, conversations, and decisions within that week will align with divine order rather than confusion. There is a level of authority that becomes accessible only at the beginning of a matter. When you speak into a week early, you are dealing with possibilities, not consequences. It is always easier to shape clay than to break hardened stone. Prayer at the start of the week allows you to shape outcomes before they become difficult to change. Many battles people fight midweek are battles that would never exist if authority had been exercised at the beginning. Taking a week intentionally also means refusing to live at the mercy of emotions, moods, or external pressures. You choose to set the spiritual climate before the environment tries to impose one on you. Peace does not just happen, it is enforced. Focus does not just appear, it is commanded. Favor is not accidental, it is authorized. When a week is taken spiritually, it does not mean challenges will not arise, but it means challenges will not control you. There is a difference between experiencing pressure and being crushed by it. Authority established early becomes a shield that absorbs shocks and redirects attacks. Even when unexpected issues arise, there is an inner stability that comes from knowing the week was already committed into higher hands. Intentional engagement with a new week is also an act of wisdom. You are acknowledging your dependence on divine guidance rather than trusting only in your own understanding. This humility invites direction, correction, and clarity. It saves you from wasting energy on distractions and helps you invest your strength where it truly matters. Ultimately, when you understand that every new week is a spiritual territory, your approach to time changes. You stop drifting and start governing. You stop surviving and start prevailing. The weak no longer happens to you, you happen to the weak. And when time is taken intentionally, it begins to reward you with alignment, progress, and results that are not ordinary. Prayer is often misunderstood as mere conversation or emotional expression, but in truth, it is a powerful act of alignment. Alignment means bringing your heart, your thoughts, your desires, and your actions into agreement with divine order. When prayer is reduced to words alone, it becomes weak and inconsistent. But when prayer is understood as alignment, it becomes a tool that positions a person correctly before life begins to respond. Alignment is necessary because human beings naturally drift. The pressures of life, the noise of responsibilities, and the influence of emotions can slowly pull a person away from divine priorities without them even realizing it. Prayer is the spiritual mechanism that recalibrates the inner man. It realigns motives, corrects perspectives, and restores sensitivity. Without alignment, even sincere effort can lead to wrong outcomes. Many people pray only when they are confused or desperate, but alignment is most powerful when things appear normal. Prayer at such moments prevents subtle errors that later become major regrets. It is possible to be active yet misaligned, busy yet off course. Alignment ensures that movement is not just progress, but progress in the right direction. When alignment takes place through prayer, clarity emerges. You begin to discern what deserves your attention and what must be ignored. Not every opportunity is a blessing, and not every open door should be entered. Prayer sharpens discernment so that decisions are not based solely on urgency or appearance, but on divine instruction. This is why prayer saves time rather than waste it. It eliminates unnecessary detours. Alignment also brings harmony between the inner and outer life. Many people struggle because their spirit is pulling them in one direction while their mind and emotions are pulling them in another. This internal conflict produces exhaustion and instability. Through prayer, the inner man gains authority and the soul learns to submit. When alignment is achieved, strength increases, peace settles, and confidence becomes steady. Another dimension of alignment is surrender. True prayer is not about convincing God to agree with your plans. It is about allowing your plans to be shaped by higher wisdom. This surrender does not weaken a person, it empowers them. When you stop insisting on your own way, you gain access to insight beyond human reasoning. Alignment removes pride and replaces it with trust. Prayer as alignment also affects timing. There are moments when acting too early can be as damaging as acting too late. Alignment ensures that actions are taken at the right time, not just with good intentions. Many failures occur not because something was wrong, but because it was done out of season. Prayer synchronizes your actions with divine timing. When alignment is established, resistance decreases. Life does not necessarily become easier, but it becomes more cooperative. Things begin to flow with less strain. Help comes unexpectedly. Answers appear without excessive struggle. This is not coincidence. It is the result of being positioned correctly. Without alignment, a person may pray frequently yet remain frustrated. With alignment, even short moments of prayer can produce profound direction. What matters is not the volume of words, but the depth of positioning. Alignment is the silent work prayer does before visible results appear. Ultimately, prayer as alignment is about standing in the right place spiritually before you attempt to move forward physically. When alignment is in place, effort becomes fruitful, decisions become accurate, and life begins to respond in ways that reflect divine order rather than chaos. Silence in the realm of the spirit is never neutral. When a person chooses not to speak, not to pray, and not to declare, that silence becomes permission for other voices to take control. Life is governed by words, and wherever authority is absent, influence rushes in to fill the vacuum. This is why unaddressed situations often grow worse with time, instead of improving on their own. From the beginning, creation itself responded to spoken command. Nothing moved until words were released. In the same way, the events of life are shaped by what is declared or left undeclared. When you remain silent at the start of a season, you are not postponing involvement. You are surrendering control. Silence is interpreted in the spirit realm as consent. Many people assume that problems arise suddenly, but most challenges develop gradually in environments where authority was never enforced. A week that begins without spiritual decoration becomes open to confusion, distraction, and unnecessary struggle. The absence of intentional speech allows negative patterns to repeat themselves unchecked. What you do not confront early often confronts you later with greater force. Silence is especially dangerous when it is rooted in passivity or fear. Some people avoid prayer because they feel unworthy, tired, or overwhelmed. Others assume that things will somehow work out on their own. But the spirit realm does not operate on assumptions. It responds to authority. When fear keeps you quiet, it hands power to the very things you are afraid of. There is also a form of silence that comes from familiarity. People become used to cycles of disappointment and begin to accept them as normal. They stop questioning, stop declaring, and stop resisting. This kind of silence normalizes dysfunction. When negative outcomes are tolerated, they are reinforced. Speaking up spiritually is how abnormal conditions are challenged and broken. Words released in prayer are not noise, they are legal instruments. They establish boundaries, set expectations, and invite divine involvement. When you speak, you are not trying to inform God, you are enforcing divine will within your sphere of influence. Silence removes those boundaries and allows anything to pass through unchecked. Unspoken weeks often become chaotic weeks. Decisions are made under pressure instead of guidance. Emotions take the lead instead of wisdom. Reactions replace strategies. All of this begins with silence. When nothing is declared, confusion feels natural and disorder feels inevitable. But when authority is spoken early, order is established before chaos can settle in. Speaking spiritually is not about shouting or repetition. It is about intentional declaration. A quiet but deliberate prayer carries more authority than loud words without conviction. What matters is consciousness. When you intentionally speak into your days, you are signaling awareness and readiness. This awareness itself becomes a form of defense. Silence also affects direction. Without spiritual declaration, people often drift into activities and commitments that were never meant for them. They become overextended, misaligned, and drained. Declaration clarifies direction. It draws lines between what belongs to you and what does not. It helps you say no where necessary and yes where it matters. Ultimately, silence gives permission because authority was never exercised. Life does not pause to wait for clarity. It moves forward continuously. If you do not define the direction, something else will. Breaking silence through prayer is how you reclaim governance over your time, your decisions, and your outcomes. When you speak, you take responsibility. And when responsibility is taken, influence is restored and life begins to respond differently. One of the greatest gifts prayer provides is spiritual intelligence. The capacity to perceive, interpret, and respond to life beyond surface information. Many people assume that mistakes are always the result of carelessness or lack of knowledge, but in reality, most costly errors come from acting without insight. Spiritual intelligence is what allows a person to see consequences before they appear and to sense danger before it manifests. Life constantly presents choices, and not all wrong decisions look wrong at the moment they are made. Some options appear attractive, logical, and even beneficial, yet carry hidden costs. Prayer sharpens perception so that decisions are not judged only by immediate gain, but by long-term impact. Through prayer, the mind becomes sensitive to subtle warnings that cannot be explained logically, but prove accurate over time. Without spiritual intelligence, people rely heavily on pressure, urgency, or popular opinion to make decisions. This often leads to regret. Prayer slows the inner man enough to listen. It creates space for reflection, restraint, and discernment. When prayer goes first, haste loses its power. You begin to understand that not every urgent matter deserves immediate action. Spiritual intelligence also helps a person distinguish between good and necessary. There are many things that are not sinful yet are still distractions. Prayer exposes what drains energy without producing results. It reveals when something is merely permissible but not profitable. This level of discernment protects focus and preserves strength. Another dimension of spiritual intelligence is the ability to interpret seasons. What works in one season may fail in another. Prayer helps you recognize when to persist and when to change direction. Many people remain stuck because they are loyal to methods that once worked but are no longer effective. Prayer brings timely instruction, preventing stagnation and frustration. Prayer also guards relationships. Many conflicts escalate because people respond emotionally rather than wisely. Spiritual intelligence enables restraint. It teaches when to speak, when to remain silent, and when to withdraw. Some battles are won by engagement, others are won by distance. Prayer reveals the difference. This wisdom preserves peace and prevents unnecessary damage. In decision-making, prayer does not always remove complexity, but it brings clarity within complexity. You may still face difficult choices, but there is an inner assurance that guides you toward the right option. This assurance cannot be manufactured. It is the result of alignment and sensitivity developed through consistent prayer. Spiritual intelligence also protects against self-deception. People can easily justify wrong choices when convenience is involved. Prayer confronts inner motives and exposes hidden intentions. It forces honesty. When prayer is absent, rationalization becomes easy. When prayer is present, truth becomes unavoidable. Another important aspect is foresight. Prayer allows you to anticipate rather than merely react. You begin to sense shifts before they become obvious. This foresight enables preparation. Preparation reduces anxiety and increases confidence. Many crises become manageable simply because they were seen early. Prayer also refines intuition. Over time, you learn to trust inner promptings that align with peace and wisdom rather than fear. This intuition becomes a reliable guide in unfamiliar situations. It is not impulsive. It is informed by alignment. Ultimately, spiritual intelligence is what separates effort from effectiveness. Many people work hard yet achieve little because their actions lack direction. When prayer goes first, actions become precise. Energy is invested wisely. Mistakes decrease and progress becomes consistent. Prayer does not eliminate responsibility, it enhances judgment. And when judgment is sound, life responds with stability, growth, and results that reflect wisdom rather than chance. Time is often treated as a neutral flow that carries everyone along equally, but in reality, time responds to authority. Days and weeks are not random sequences. They are frameworks designed to respond to direction. When authority is absent, time drifts. When authority is enforced, time aligns. Prayer is the medium through which this authority is expressed. Many people feel oppressed by time, always rushed, always behind, always reacting. This sense of pressure is not always the result of poor planning. It is often the result of spiritual passivity. Without authority, time dictates the pace and direction of life. With authority, time becomes a servant rather than a master. Authority over time is not about control in a mechanical sense. It is about alignment with divine order. When prayer is offered, you are not merely asking for more hours in the day. You are inviting divine structure into your schedule. This structure brings efficiency. Things that once took excessive effort begin to resolve with less strain. Prayer establishes priorities. Many times, related frustrations come from doing too many things that do not truly matter. Authority helps you recognize what deserves your attention now and what can wait. When authority is enforced through prayer, distractions lose their appeal and focus becomes natural. Time responds to spoken intention. When you declare the direction of your week through prayer, you are setting a framework that guides events. Meetings align. Opportunities surface at the right moment. Delays are reduced. This does not mean life becomes predictable, but it becomes purposeful. One of the mysteries of authority over time is redemption. Prayer allows lost time to be restored in impact, if not in chronology. Opportunities that seem missed are replaced by better ones. Progress accelerates. Momentum is regained. This restoration is not accidental. It is the result of authority intervening in what once felt wasted. Without authority, time exposes weakness. Fatigue increases. Confusion multiplies. Effort feels unproductive. But when authority is present, even busy seasons become manageable. Strength is renewed. Focus sharpens. Time begins to work with you instead of against you. Authority over time also affects patience. When you understand that time is responding to divine order, impatience decreases. You no longer rush outcomes or force results. You trust the process because you know direction has been established. This patience prevents errors that come from acting prematurely. Prayer does not remove responsibility. It enhances stewardship. You still plan, organize, and act, but now your actions are supported by structure beyond your own capacity. Authority creates a covering that absorbs pressure and reduces stress. Another aspect of time responding to authority is consistency. When authority is enforced regularly, results become stable. You are not effective one week and confused the next. There is rhythm. Rhythm produces sustainability. Sustainability produces long-term growth. Ultimately, when you understand that time responds to authority, your relationship with life changes. You stop chasing deadlines and start governing seasons. You stop fearing delay and start trusting alignment. Prayer becomes the point where authority is established and direction is released. When authority speaks, time listens, and when time listens, progress becomes intentional, meaningful, and productive rather than accidental. Every week carries its own weight. Responsibilities, expectations, pressures, and uncertainties all converge, often before the week has fully begun. Many people enter these days already tired, already anxious, already overwhelmed, not because the tasks are impossible, but because they are trying to carry them alone. Prayer is the divine exchange system through which burdens are transferred and strength is received. Burdens are not always dramatic crises. Often they are quiet concerns that sit heavily on the mind. Unfinished responsibilities, financial pressures, relational tensions, and fear of the unknown all accumulate. When these burdens remain unaddressed, they drain energy and clarity. Prayer provides a space where these weights can be released intentionally rather than carried unconsciously. Strength is not only physical endurance, it is emotional stability, mental clarity, and spiritual resilience. Prayer renews all three. When burdens are surrendered, strength flows in their place. This exchange is not symbolic, it is experiential. The heaviness that once slowed movement is replaced with a sense of capacity and peace. Many people attempt to manage burdens by distraction or suppression. They keep busy, avoid thinking, or deny pressure. These methods provide temporary relief but do not resolve the weight. Prayer confronts the burden directly and hands it over to a higher authority. This transfer prevents accumulation and breakdown. Another aspect of prayer's power is its ability to prioritize burdens. Not every concern deserves equal attention. Prayer filters what truly matters and releases what does not. This prevents unnecessary stress and preserves energy for what is essential. When strength is focused, effectiveness increases. Prayer also restores perspective. Under pressure, small issues can feel overwhelming. Prayer recenters the mind and reminds the soul of greater realities. This perspective does not deny challenges, it repositions them. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable when seen through a lens of trust and authority. The strength received through prayer is sustainable. It is not the adrenaline that comes from urgency, but a steady capacity that endures. This strength allows consistency. You are not strong one day and depleted the next. There is balance. Balance preserves health and clarity. Prayer also addresses hidden burdens. Those that are not spoken a lot. Emotional wounds, disappointments, and silent fears often weigh more than visible problems. Prayer creates a safe space for these to be acknowledged and released. This honesty prevents internal conflict and burnout. When burdens are transferred through prayer, anxiety loses its grip. Anxiety thrives on control and uncertainty. Prayer replaces both with trust. Trust does not remove responsibility, but it removes panic. Decisions are made calmly rather than impulsively. Actions are thoughtful rather than reactive. Another important dimension is renewal. Strength received through prayer is not only for survival but for progress. It fuels creativity, patience, and endurance. Tasks are approached with clarity instead of dread. Interactions are marked by grace rather than irritation. Without prayer, burdens multiply and strength diminishes. With prayer, burdens decrease and strength multiplies. This exchange becomes a rhythm. The more consistently it is practiced, the lighter life feels, not because demands disappear, but because capacity increases. Ultimately, prayer is where you admit limitation and receive empowerment. It is where weakness is acknowledged without shame and strength is received without striving. When burdens are laid down and strength is taken up, the weak becomes something you carry with confidence, rather than something that carries you down. When a week is committed to God at its beginning, it enters into a dimension of grace that sustains it from start to finish. Grace is not merely unearned favor, it is divine enablement that supports a person through responsibilities, challenges, and unexpected demands. A week that begins in prayer is not promised to be free of difficulty, but it is assured of support that prevents collapse. Many people judge the quality of a week by the absence of problems, but this is a shallow measure. The true mark of a well-governed week is not whether challenges appear, but whether they overpower you. Prayer establishes a foundation that absorbs pressure. When difficulties arise, they meet resistance rather than vulnerability. Grace provides endurance. It allows you to continue when natural strength would fail. Tasks that once felt exhausting become manageable. Patience replaces frustration. Focus replaces distraction. This endurance is not forced. It flows naturally from alignment and trust established through prayer. A week sustained by grace also experiences clarity. Even in complex situations, there is an inner sense of direction. Confusion does not dominate. You may not have all the answers, but you know the next step. This clarity prevents paralysis and indecision. Grace also attracts assistance. Help often comes in ordinary forms: timely conversations, unexpected understanding, open doors. These are not coincidences. They are outcomes of alignment. When a week is committed in prayer, connections form more easily and cooperation replaces resistance. Another expression of grace is protection. Protection does not mean the absence of risk, but the preservation of purpose. Harmful distractions, unnecessary conflicts, and avoidable errors are minimized. Even when mistakes occur, their consequences are softened. Recovery is quicker. Lessons are learned without lasting damage. Prayer at the beginning of the week also shapes attitude. Gratitude increases. Complaining decreases. Hope becomes steady. This attitude influences outcomes. People respond better. Situations de-escalate. Peace becomes contagious. A grace-filled week often ends differently than it begins. Even if it starts with uncertainty, it closes with insight. Even if it begins with pressure, it ends with relief. This transformation is a sign of divine involvement. The testimony may not always be dramatic, but it is tangible. Testimony is not limited to visible success. It includes internal victories, overcoming fear, exercising restraint, choosing wisdom. These are signs of progress. Prayer programs the week for such victories. Grace also fosters consistency. You are not effective only in moments of inspiration. There is steadiness. This steadiness builds confidence. Confidence encourages action. Action produces results. Without prayer, weeks often end in regret, missed opportunities, strained relationships, unresolved stress. With prayer, even imperfect weeks carry a sense of fulfillment. You know you were guided, supported, and preserved.